After studying for decades the works of Krishnamurti and Gurdjieff with their tools of self-observation and self-remembering, and for the past 15 years of studying Aikido directly under Koichi Tohei, the father of Aikido, and his emphasis on placing the physical and mental aspects of a human on a point in the lower abdomen known as the Seika no Itten or Seika Tanden, or simply put, the one point in the lower abdomen. It wasn't until I came across the work of Karlfried Durckhein and his book Hara, The Vital Center of Man, that I found a way to bring those two somewhat different approaches together in one approach. And the realization of that was very deep and profound for myself. So I would like to read a few short sections from this incredible book. So with that, I would like to begin. Hara, as we already know, means literally belly. For the whole region of the belly, the Japanese also have the word fukubu and onaka. Onaka means literally the honored middle, and is the term for belly as used by children and the common people. Hara, as well as fukubu and onaka, means, roughly speaking, the whole region from the stomach to the lower abdomen. And, as with us, it is divided into stomach, in Japanese I, and what is below the navel. Below the navel is called kikai, and this word plays a certain part in connection with tanden, by which the Japanese mean the spot about 2 inches, or perhaps more, below the navel. And tanden means the center of gravity as such, which is cultivated in the developed hara. Man, as a living being, is not rooted in himself. Rather is he nourished, sustained, and held in order by nature, whose laws operate without his knowledge and assistance. Man sets himself in opposition to the order of life, which fundamentally sustains him if, by an unnatural shifting of his center of gravity, he denies that vital center in his bearing, which testifies to this order. Intellect, will, and emotion, the powers of head, chest, and heart, with which man as a conscious being has been endowed, will prove his undoing if, caught in the net of his concepts, in the brilliance of his achievements, and in the web of his entanglements, he forgets his anchorage in the weaving and working of the greater life. Just as the growth and unfolding of the crown of a tree depends directly on its root system, so also the vital development of man's spirit depends on his being true to his roots. That is, to an uninterrupted contact with the primal unity of life, from which human life also springs. If, forgetting this, man diminishes the realm of his primal life by artificially pulling himself upwards physically, he disturbs the balance of his natural forces, and the inflated I then bars access to that higher development, which it is its real function humbly to prepare, protect, and serve. The practice of Hara is based on an insight into the region where man's deeper possibilities and powers have their roots, and consequently where, in the practice of any art, the physical center of gravity should be. In the strengthened Hara, this center of gravity will have become second nature. The more technical training of Hara is based upon the following considerations. Every action relating to work or deed is controlled from that center point, generally known as the I. This I is present in various ways in all our intentional actions. The I sees the aim of an act objectively. It fixes it. It determines it and clings to it. This presupposes that the I also clings to itself. That is, that it clings unwaveringly to the object desired. In short, that it remains concentrated only on its object. By virtue of this concentration, this objective fixing, whereby man remains firmly conscious of the object in mind, and, on the other hand, by keeping himself in constant relationship with it, the motive power for any action is changed into purposeful will. Only unflagging concentration, while the eye keeps its object and itself in view, produces that one-pointedness and perseverance of will and aim, which is the prerequisite for any advance in technique. That is, until the technique has become automatic. But the inward gain of automatization lies eventually in the hope and possibility of withdrawing, neutralizing, the fixing eye. Only where the eye power is no longer needed can success, as it were, blossom forth of itself. And conversely, only where perfect technique in deed or work is possible without the participation of the eye can man, in the midst of his action, become aware of being working within him, so that the act itself becomes the gateway to enlightenment. The center of consciousness to which, on the one hand, we owe the ability to focus something firmly, to fix it objectively, and to pursue it purposefully, but which, on the other, debars us from the deeper powers of being, is only, one, the formal side of the eye. It is confronted by another side, which determines the content aspect of self and world experience. To experience a thing as I is therefore dual. Man, by identifying himself with this center of consciousness, conceives his experiences objectively, while as a subject, determined by a certain relationship to the world, he experiences the world in terms of his private purposes. Understood thus, the I is the source of actions and reactions in which man is reflected in his personal relation to himself and the world. The I, in the sense of this personal I, is not only the formal, ever unchanging condition for all objective experience, but also its own material center of experience. Imprisoned in this I, man has ultimately only one aim in view: to preserve himself in this transient existence. When his subjective life is completely controlled by this I, man strives to maintain and to preserve himself, and shows this by his continual desire for appreciation, for acknowledgement of his position, as well as by his continual anxiety and fear of depreciation, underestimation, or even annihilation. He feels himself always somehow threatened, and in everything he does he seeks security, recognition, and power, seeks to safeguard himself, to shine, and to rule. All these manifestations spring from what may be called the little ego. This material side of the I means that we can never be sure of maintaining a selfless attitude or performing a really disinterested service. As long as a task or an action depend exclusively on our capacity for outward material constancy or on controlled willpower, and both are motivated and controlled solely by the I, all human activity rests on a weak, uncertain foundation. Firmer ground is found only where man is rooted elsewhere, that is, when in his self and his world consciousness he is anchored in something different. When a man possesses a fully developed Hara, he has the strength and precision to perform actions which otherwise he could never achieve, even with the most perfect technique, the closest attention or the strongest willpower. Only what is done with Hara succeeds completely. Just as life as a whole can be lived in full perfection only when a man is truly one with his primordial center, so every manifestation of it, whether in battle, in art, or in love, succeeds only for him who has gained Hara.